Well, this should be fun. What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So Pokémon Sun and Moon are phenomenal games, and I'd be the first one to tell you that. However, while everyone has had nothing but good things to say about these games ever since they were revealed, they, just like any other games, aren't perfect. So today, I thought it would be fun to play a little bit of Devil's Advocate and talk about some of the things in Pokémon Sun and Moon that could be a little bit better. However, since I'm sure you're all getting your hate comments ready, I've decided to bring in my good friend Mr. Buddy to help me tackle this topic.
What's up everybody, I'm Mr. Buddy, and like Hoops said, we're going to tackle the interesting topic of what we believe are the worst things in Pokémon Sun and Moon. Since this might be a little bit of a touchy subject, keep in mind that this list is 100% our opinion, and if you disagree, that's totally fine. Hoops and I also made a list of the top 5 best things in Sun and Moon over on my channel, so if you want to know the things we love the most about the games, then head on over to my channel after this video. Also, just a quick heads up that this video is going to have some spoilers for Pokémon Sun and Moon in it, so just keep that in mind. Alright, with all the disclaimers aside, let's go ahead and jump straight into the list.
So this first one is a little silly, but it's still really annoying, so it definitely deserves to make the list. What exactly am I referring to, you might ask? Well, I'm talking about the fact that when you go to get your hair done at the various salons throughout Alola, you are unable to preview hairstyles and colors before you make your final decision. In fact, you have to pay for the service that you want, whether it's a cut, color, or both, before you're even able to see what colors and cuts are available. Then, as I said, you aren't able to preview anything before you make a final decision, meaning if you pick something you don't like, you're gonna have to cough up some more dough to get it fixed. This is really frustrating, and it makes me wonder what Game Freak was thinking when they decided to exclude this feature from the game. Its absence is even more confusing when you consider that you are able to preview clothes from the apparel shops before you buy them, but not hair. It's not exactly a game-breaking flaw, but it was definitely something that caused me a bit of frustration early on in my first playthrough.
At number 4 is the fact that we didn't receive any new fossil Pokemon in this generation. We've come to expect new fossil Pokemon with each new set of games since we've received them in every generation except Gen 2, and it's a group of Pokemon that fans always look forward to seeing each generation, similar to the starters and legendaries. To be fair, it was a bit of a toss-up from the get-go as to whether or not we would get them since Alola is based on Hawaii, and Hawaii doesn't really have a lot of prehistoric life. The fact that Alola has a smaller Pokedex didn't help either, and overall was just kind of disappointing since fossils always provide some of the more interesting and cool Pokemon of each generation. Hopefully we'll see their return in Generation 8, but at the same time there are some other things in Sun and Moon that are far worse than their lack of fossil Pokemon.
Next up is the lack of a legitimate Zygarde event. This one is just flat out confusing because Game Freak started hyping up Zygarde with his new forms over 6 months before Sun and Moon were announced. On top of that, he got not 1, not 2, but 3 new forms. He also saw a pretty important role in the anime, so the stars were all aligning for Zygarde to finally get his big break. But he didn't. Sure, you've got the side quest of collecting the cells and cores, but even after you travel all over the Alola region finding all 100 of them, nothing happens. No special event or sequence or cutscene, you just get complete Zygarde and that's it. Sure, he's cool, and yeah, he's really powerful, but with all the attention he got leading up to Sun and Moon's release, I was definitely expecting a lot more, and it was disappointing that Zygarde was effectively shut out of the spotlight once again.
Let me just say before I start talking about our number 2 that this was Hoops' pick, so don't hate me when I say that our number 2 is the Trials. I do partially agree with him on this though, and even though the Trials is in our best things about Sun and Moon video too, I still think there were some issues with them. Now before you freak out, let me explain. It's not the idea of the Trials or even the battles with the totem Pokemon, it's the objectives and content of the Trials themselves that Hoops describes as, for lack of a better term, just a little bit shallow. Personally, we were expecting the trials to be a little bit longer and have their objectives be somewhat more complex. Two good examples of trials that were honestly kind of dumb were Lana's and Kiowa's trials. All you did in Lana's trial was follow the Wishy-Washy around from spot to spot, and it was over after following them for about 3 times. Kiyoe's trial, while it started off as fairly challenging in the first round of his Spot the Difference game, the second and third rounds were so painfully obvious that it almost wasn't even worth having them in the first place. We both really liked the idea of the trials as they were a really nice change of pace and made the games feel like a whole new adventure, but if they ever include them again, possibly in some sort of follow-up game, I hope that they make the trial objectives better and not quite as simple.
And finally, our number one pick is the lack of a second region. Now, I understand completely that Sun and Moon, or any Pokemon game for that matter, are not obligated to have a second region just because Gold and Silver did, and in most cases that shouldn't be held against them. This situation is an exception, however, because they teased the crap out of a second region, both in the promotion of the games and the games themselves. First, it was the connection to Zygarde and everything that was left unfinished in Kalos. It made total sense that we would return to Kalos since Zygarde's new forms were a part of this game, and because of all the unfinished aspects of the Kalos region. But that didn't happen, and it left Kalos sad and incomplete. Then our focus shifted to Kanto. The Kanto hype really started to ramp up after the demo was released when we found out that the player character is from Kanto. Then, in Pokemon's live-action Train On series of trailers, we saw the little Asian boy who represented the player character return back to his home, which we now knew as Kanto, thanks to the Sun and Moon demo. Then, all throughout the game, everyone was talking about Kanto. Kukui himself mentioned that he went there, and he even made a mention of wanting to show off Alola's trainers and Pokemon to the world. In hindsight, he was most likely referring to the Pokemon League, but during the middle of my playthrough, it sounded that he might be sending you to Kanto later in the game. However, the one thing that trumps everything else occurs right after you beat the Elite Four. Hau comes to your house and starts asking about Kanto and whether it's close or far away from Alola. If you respond that it's close, your mom will go on to say that it's close enough to visit whenever you want. Well, if that's the case, then let me go there, Game Freak. Part of me is hopeful that this teasing is in reference to the rumored Pokemon Stars, which is said to be for the Nintendo Switch. On a console like that, they would definitely have the room and the power for a second region, so I'm hoping that that's what they're referring to, although I'm not getting my hopes too high after what happened with Kalos. All in all, it seemed like our most wanted feature that we have wanted to return for almost 20 years was finally coming back for the 20th anniversary, but it just didn't happen. However, I will never give up hope that one day it will happen again, and maybe by the 25th or even 50th anniversary, it will have finally happened and all our dreams will have come true. And there you have it. Those are our picks for the worst things about Pokemon Sun and Moon. However, even though I use the word worst, none of these things are really that big of a problem because overall, Sun and Moon are phenomenal games. They're so phenomenal, in fact, that Mr. Buddy and I decided to put together a video over on his channel on the top 5 best things about Pokemon Sun and Moon. So be sure to check that out by clicking the link in the description or the end card. If you came here from Mr. Buddy's channel, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. I make all kinds of Pokemon content from top 5s, to theories, to fact and trivia videos, and remixes. I also upload every week, so if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button and get ready for some awesome Pokemon content. I'll see you guys with another video soon, and until then, I'll smell you guys later.